When I first open a brand new database, it prompts me to create a table. Remember, tables hold the information inside of our database. For this database, this table will be our owners table. It will contain information on all the pet owners at this veterinary clinic. We want to give each pet owner their own unique ID, sort of like you have your own student ID at Virginia Western. Right now, that field name is already called ID. We want to change that field name to be a little more descriptive. So this is a default field put in by Access. To rename it, I can right-click on it and choose Rename Field. This field we want to be called Owner ID. Once I'm done renaming the field, I need to click below the field and then click back on top of the field so that I can make some changes to it. It gets me out of the typing window, but still selects the field. So on my Table Tools tab in the Fields tab area, I can make some changes to this. It is a unique field because it's a primary key, so it has that check in the checkbox. If I wanted to modify that, I could uncheck it. Where it says data type, I can change the data type by clicking on the drop-down box. By default, Access makes the data type of a primary key an auto number. It automatically assigns a number, but we want control over what the owner ID is. So we're going to choose short text instead. And then there's an area for field size. This is how many characters you can type in for each record in each field. And for this one, we are going to want a field size of 5. Right above that, there's an area for name and caption. A caption, we want to keep the name the same, but a caption is just a shorter version of a name, like a nickname for a field. And like I said, it's usually shorter, so we're going to call that O_ID for owner ID. And then the description gives us some information about what that field is. Unique identifier of pet owner. I'll click OK, and I'm done with that field. Now it's time to add a new field. I'm adding fields right now in Datasheet View. I'll show you another way later in the chapter. But in Datasheet View, to add another field, I click where it says click to add. It prompts me to choose what kind of field I want. I want short text. I want it to be owner first name. And then this is tricky. I have to click below the field, then click back on top of the field so I can get out of the typing window but still select the field and enter in any other information I need, like the field size for this needs to be 50. I'll click to add another one. I'll say short text. Owner last name. I'll click below the column. Then I'll click back on top of it. Owner last name, we want a field size of 50 as well. I'll click to add my next one, and I'll continue going. If you look on page AC 110 in your paper book, or under the area where it says creating a table in Datasheet View, it gives you the chart that has all the field names for this table. I'm going to go ahead and enter all those in, and then I'll be back. Okay, we are back. I've entered the owner ID, the owner first name, owner last name, owner street address, owner city, owner state, owner postal code, home phone, mobile phone, and email address into my table. Now it's time to save my table. If I click up at the top, there is a click save button for me to save this table. I think this might be a good time to also talk about the layout of the window in Access. So this area up top and down the side, I like to consider the shell of my database. And over here on the side, I will start getting a list of the different pieces that are inside my database itself. Right now we're working on a table, so it's listed here, but as we get more objects, they will appear going down in this area. So Here's my table right now. This is the thing that I'm working on. The rest of the database has already been saved. Remember, we did that at the beginning, and it automatically backs up. But as we create new pieces in the database and we decide how they look and format how they look, then those we do have to save. So when I hit my quick save button, I'm actually just saving the table. The database is already saved. So I'll click save, and it will tell me table name. And this, in this case, is going to be the owners table. So I'll type owners and click OK. To close out of this table, I do not want to click the big X up here at the top. This will close my entire database. But this X right here will close just the owners table. So if I click it, it is now closed. To open it back up, I double click on owners to open it back up. Also, a couple of things to note. There are some chevrons over here that open and close different components within your database. Be careful. If you can't see the list of items in your database, then maybe you've clicked one of those chevrons on accident. Let's go ahead and check our table. We created this table in Datasheet view. It is not my favorite way to create. I think it's a little confusing, but we've done it. But I want to point out to you the view button right here, because this button is very important in Access. If I click on it, you'll see I'm in Datasheet view. That's actually the view I usually use to enter in information. But the Design View tab is how you design your table or design the different components within your database. So I like to create things in Design View. It's also a great way to check to make sure something has been created correctly. Let's check our owners table. I'll click Design View. This is like the back end of our table, and it's where we can see how everything is set up for the table itself. I see all the field names going down. I see their data types, and then if there's a description, I see that as well. I can click on the different fields and see more information about them down here. And I can get a little more nitty-gritty in Design View than I can in the other view if I want to change different things. If I see something that's incorrect, I can click on it, and there's usually a drop-down box where I can fix it, or if it's the description, then I could just retype it. It allows me to fix things too in my table. And then I'll draw your attention to the primary key. Remember, this is the unique identifier for the owners. They all have their unique identifier. Unique identifier means that it can't be the same as anybody else's in the table. So you could have more than one customer, more than one owner with the same first name or even with the same last name or street address. But the owner ID is specific to that individual person. It is unique. To change that, you can click on this key. One click turns it off, one click turns it back on. Now that I've checked this, I'll go ahead and close out of my database. It's asking me if I want to save changes to it since I clicked this primary key, so I'll say yes. Let's look at adding records into your table. To add records, you have to do that in Datasheet view. When I double click to open up my table, it automatically opens in Datasheet view, as you can see. And then I just start typing in the information for each record and using the tab key to move between fields. The owner ID for the first one is going to be O-1. And I'll hit my tab key and type Ted Sabas, and I keep going across with the information. Next record is O2. Okay, now that I've entered in all of the data, I can go ahead and close out of my table. Notice it didn't prompt me to save because the data that you enter into your table is automatically backed up. The only time you need to save is when you change the fields or the layout of the table.